There probably isn't a club in world football who does transfers quite as erratically as Newcastle United. For every public unveiling of Shearer, Owen or Kluivert that's attended by thousands of delirious fans, there's also just as many people stood scratching their heads at reading the words Cassapa, Stephen Ireland or Antoine Sibierski. But the thing is, Sibierski was a better signing for Newcastle than Patrick Kluivert, or at the very least was a far more popular player. Which goes to show that it doesn't matter what the price tag is, you just never know who's gonna lodge themselves in the hearts of supporters. My name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 underwhelming Newcastle signings who became cult heroes. Number 10, Peter Lovenkran. With the club languishing perilously close to the drop zone in 2009, fingers were crossed that Mike Ashley might loosen the purse strings in a bid to arrest the alarming slide. Unfortunately, Peter Lovenkran's free transfer from Schalke didn't exactly set pulses racing, especially as he had 8 goals in his 56 appearances since leaving Rangers. He got 3 more goals that season but still found himself out the door as Ashley refused to pick up his now expired contract. However, within 2 months he was back and banged in an impressive 16 goals in 32 championship appearances. His cult hero status, however, came when he scored a crucial equaliser against promotion rivals West Brom just days after the death of his father. This earned his team a point, yes, but also got him a lifetime of respect from the club's fans in the process. Number 9, Sebastien Bassong. Offered a 1-week trial in July 2008 by Kevin Keegan, most fans could be forgiven for thinking the unknown 23-year-old centre-back would just be the latest Diatta. And if you're not sure who that is, then, well, exactly. But while £10 million signing Colaccini haplessly floundered in his debut season, Bassong's physique, composure and presence allowed him to settle into his new surroundings with relative ease. Winning over supporters with a string of towering performances in a sea of absolutely molten, putrid filth that season, Bassong was a rubber dinghy of absolute class. This cult status that year was cemented, but he opted to bin it all off following relegation and jump ship to Spurs. When you look at how Colo turned his career around in the Championship, one can only wonder what level Bassong could have risen to if he'd not been lured away by the White Hart Lane bench. Number 8, Ryan Taylor. As the saying goes, if you can't beat him, join him. Or in this case, if a player seems to have a personal vendetta against your team and your team alone, just, buy them. With the club sliding perilously close to the dreaded drop zone, Taylor's signature hardly filled supporters with confidence. Following a difficult opening 6 months, which, yes, included a relegation, Taylor finally found his feet in the Championship, making 31 appearances and weighing in with 4 goals. He struggled with injuries the following year, but with Jose Enrique sold to Liverpool and David Santon not deemed ready yet, Taylor was pressed into emergency service at left-back by Alan Pardew. He was, in fairness, a revelation. Stunning goals against Everton and Sunderland immediately made him a household name, and through both song and the occasional free kick, he's remained so ever since. Number 7, Kevin Nolan. Alright, so the thing is, Kevin Nolan's game is about feeding off a target man. Be that Kevin Davies, Andy Carroll or Carlton Cole, he's done it for his entire career. Astoundingly, when he arrived on Tyneside, in the midst of a bad season and playing behind a 5'8" strike partnership of Michael Owen and Obafemi Martins, he struggled and struggled badly. He was a panic buy, it showed, and both he and the club were duly relegated. But similar to the club itself, Nolan found rejuvenation in the Championship and plundered 17 goals from midfield. Back in the Prem, he hit 12, including 3 against Sunderland. Given his nothing performances following his debut, including one of the worst, most needless red cards in the club's recent history against Everton, it was an astonishing turnaround for a man few saw any real hope for. Number 6, Martin Dubravka. Now, admittedly, yes, the underwhelming tag on Martin Dubravka was A, only a result of Pepe Reina's name being bandied around all season prior to his arrival, and B, disappeared about 20 minutes into his debut, never to be seen again. But nonetheless, right up until Anthony Martial fluffed that one-on-one, it did exist. With neither Carl Darlow nor Rob Elliott fully cementing themselves on the club's return to the top flight, Rafa Benitez dipped into the transfer market to loan an otherwise unheard-of keeper from Sparta Prague. This wasn't the experienced, reliable Premier League goalkeeper the team had been crying out for. This was some bargain bin Eastern European lad with massive ears. Fast forward 2 whole seasons later, and Dubravka is unarguably one of the best goalies in the league and regularly allows his team to hold on to points they should otherwise be losing. One of the club's best transfers in recent years. Number 5, Craig Bellamy. My arrival in the northeast didn't exactly fire the imagination of the Geordie nation. I had the radio on as I drove to St James's Park for my first day of training, and the phone-in was discussing my signing. It was being interpreted as an indication that ambitions weren't high. Those, and I'm sorry I didn't even attempt his Welsh accent, are Craig Bellamy's own words. I mean, in defence of that particular radio phone-in, it was fair enough though. One season in the top flight with Coventry, 6 goals from 34 appearances, there can hardly have been many who predicted he'd become one of the best strikers in Premier League history from those humble beginnings. But he was an instant hit, bagging his first goal for the club in the Tyne Wear derby before ending the season with 14 goals and a PFA Young Player of the Year award. His finest moment, indeed one of the club's finest moments, came when he scored the winner in Rotterdam to spark the most #Limbs sight you have ever seen. The less said about his departure, of course, the better. Number 4, Keith Gillespie. Now, it wasn't Keith Gillespie's fault that he arrived at the club under the cloud of the Andy Cole transfer, but that didn't stop him being tarred with the justifiable anger attached to that sale. Just as the club looked to be getting set to challenge back in the top flight, did they sell their most dangerous player and somewhere in the bargain gained a Northern Irish winger nobody believed they really needed. But he enjoyed arguably the best years of his career at the club. He was undoubtedly one of Keegan's most dependable entertainers, and his personal deconstruction of Barcelona's left side one of the best things about that 3-2 win. I mean, his most cult moment relates to a certain story about him, a bar in Dublin, a plant pot, and a certain Mr. Shearer, but I will not be telling that here. Number 3, Joey Barton. It's easy to forget given his Nietzsche-quoting, question-time appearing modern persona, but Joey Barton only arrived at Newcastle because Man City had had enough of him, spending time behind bars for beating up a 15-year-old 6 months after penning a contract at St James's Park didn't exactly help. That sending off against Liverpool and subsequent bust-up with Alan Shearer being the final straw for virtually the entire fan base. But he stuck around in the Championship and was one of the men credited with emptying the dressing room of the assorted shirkers and mercenaries. 2 things that earned him a lot of credit. A stellar return season in the Premier League, including that performance in the Arsenal 4-4 represented a complete and utter turnaround, even to the point that fans were up in arms when he was moved on for next to nothing after speaking out about the club's lack of ambition. Number 2, James Perch. In all my years as a freelance football writer, I only ever wrote 2 articles about James Perch. The first coming immediately after he picked up the dubious distinction of being the first player in Premier League history to pick up a yellow card in their opening 5 appearances, was that he might be one of the worst signings the club had ever made. The second, coming after he'd played an astonishingly important role in helping the team finish 5th, was that I might be one of the most hastily judgy writers in the entire industry. I'm deadly serious here, the headline was literally just James Perch's mint, I am an idiot. Very few men to pull on the black and white have silenced as many doubters as the Mansfield Zanetti here, and I'm pleased to say I was one of them. Playing right back, left back, centre back and centre midfield during his time at the club, Perchinio gave up height, he gave up pace, he gave up strength and he gave up ability to virtually everyone he faced, but he more than doubled them for commitment and effort. That is the kind of thing that Newcastle fans remember. Number 1, Antoine Sibierski. You see, look at that, he's brought the whole video full circle. Any aspiring presenters out there, take a good, long, hard look at me and my God, please aim higher. Anyway, when Glenn Roeder signed Manchester City reject Antoine Sibierski 2 hours before the close of the transfer window, when the club desperately needed a goalscorer, everyone was rightly furious. Here was a player that 34-year-old Andy Cole was currently keeping out of a football team. But sticking the proverbial 2 fingers up at the Man City supporters who'd gleefully mocked his exit and the Newcastle supporters who'd audibly groaned upon his arrival, Sibierski churned out several big performances and struck up an effective partnership with Obafemi Martins, managing 22 goals between them that season and endearing himself to the Tyneside faithful. In the space of just 12 months, he went from being labelled one of the club's worst ever signings to almost starting a riot when he wasn't offered a new deal. Football, bloody hell, etc. So there you have it, those are 10 underwhelming Newcastle signings who became cult heroes, read to you by a man who also underwhelmed somewhat when he was appointed as a presenter at this company, but, well, you watched the whole video, didn't you? Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. This is What Culture Football, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.